How's it going, guys? My name is Tavarish, and this is my 2009 Aston Martin DBS. This is my money no object dream car. I've been lusting after this thing for many years, and now that I finally have one, all I do is drive it. I've been driving it for the better part of a year, and that's sort of the issue because this car doesn't run as good as it used to. It runs kind of lumpy, it's down on power, and honestly, it just needs a little bit of maintenance. So as an Aston Martin owner, what I did is I called up the dealership to see how much it would cost to fix all of my little issues. And they said that in order to get this car running tip-top, ship-shape, it would cost the better part of $7,000. Now, being me, I'm definitely not going to go to the dealership for anything, so I decided to do everything myself and try to save several $1,000s in the process because how hard could it be? On second thought, maybe going to the dealer wasn't such a bad idea. So if you guys are new to my channel, thank you so much for watching. I really hope you enjoy it. And consider subscribing if these are the cars and projects you like to see. This is probably my favorite car in all of my fleet. Well, for now. I mean, I have a lot of different favorite cars, but this is my favorite because this is quite possibly the most beautiful car ever made. And don't at me, I'm not going to argue about this. This is really pretty. And this V12 is also one of the greatest V12s ever made. It has an awesome low down grunt. It's 6 liters or 5.9 if you have to be pedantic, and it really looks awesome. It has this white intake manifold, and it has some Ford parts, because that's good. But the car being as good looking as it is, it's not without its issues. And this has an Achilles heel because, as I found out, this has a stumble at low RPMs and it's down on power. It really doesn't like driving all that much. So much, in fact, that I'm not even going to show you what this sounds like because I am a little bit scared of putting raw fuel into my cats and then having that destroy something, and then potentially having some engine damage. So I'm just gonna give you the next best thing, which is a dramatic reenactment. Now, the reason why I'm trying to do all this stuff myself is, one, because I really want to drive this car again, and two, because I'm getting ready for the next Car Trek. You guys know that I have a series called Car Trek. It's like a Top Gear Grand Tour-ish series with Ed Bullion and Tyler Hoover. Go check it out in the link in the video description below if you haven't already. But this car is going to be featured in the next one, and I can't have it featured if it's not running right. Now, another thing that I'm working on, and it's honestly been a labor of love for the past few years, is my hairline. You guys have talked about my hair for ever, really. I mean, you guys have given me comments about my hair every single video. And some of them are a little bit weird, but a lot of them are positive. And you guys have noticed that I've been getting a little bit of this hair, this beautiful mane back. And that is because of today's sponsor, Keeps. So I bet you didn't know that 2 out of 3 guys, by the time they're 35, will experience some form of male pattern baldness. That is most guys. That's like, you see guys outside in the world, most of them are experiencing some form of male pattern baldness, and I am definitely one of them. But my hair loss, my male pattern baldness, is now more under control because I've been using Keeps, and you guys have been noticing. So the way Keeps works is a licensed doctor will review your information online and recommend the right hair loss treatment plan for you. Then your treatment is shipped directly to your door every 3 months. It's a more affordable option since Keeps offers generic versions of FDA-approved medications for hair loss. So prevention is key. Keeps treatments can take up to 4 to 6 months or more for you to start seeing results, so it's important to act fast. It just means that the sooner you start using Keeps, the more hair you could potentially save. So if you're ready to take action and prevent hair loss, go to keeps.com/Tavarish and get 50% off your first order. That's KEEPS.com/Tavarish to get 50% off your first order. Go check it out in the link in the video description below right now. So let's begin. This is a awesome V12. And it's not so awesome to actually work on because, as you can see, the top of this engine is covered with intake manifold, and it's not like a two-piece thing. It's all sort of one piece of aluminum. Well, there's two pieces here, there's two intake manifolds, but you have to take everything off to get to what's down here, and what's down here is what I have to change, essentially. So I have to change the spark plugs because they're a very common culprit for this engine not running right. In addition, the coil packs that attach to the spark plugs also should be changed because you don't want to do all this work and then realize the coil pack was bad. In addition, I'm also going to change a bunch of stuff like the intake manifold gaskets because you can't really reuse those, and these have been on for 30,000 miles. And also I'm gonna have to do something about this PCV system, which is a positive crankcase ventilation system. It takes the crankcase pressure, the positive crankcase pressure, and it allows that to be bled into the intake manifold, but it's also a way for oil not to get into the intake manifold, but a lot of times that system doesn't work properly. Sometimes the PCV valves fail, they get stuck open, or they're just not fit for the job, which is, I think, the case here. So we're gonna modify that. And I don't know if you can notice this, but I am actually reporting to you from the future because I already have all this done and I know exactly how much work this took. And boy, howdy, did it take a lot of work. But right now I'm gonna go back in time so I can show you exactly how much work goes into changing out the spark plugs, the coil packs. Also, I'm probably gonna do belts, I'm gonna do an oil change. Essentially, just a major service on an Aston Martin DBS. All right, so I believe that we're past the hard part, and the hard part was taking off those intake manifolds. Honestly, it was very, very difficult to get into the bolts in the back there because in most cars, when you have an engine kind of set far back like this, you have access because the cowl can be unbolted. In this car, it's all one bonded piece, so you really have to finagle your way back in there, you have to scrunch your hand in there, and you have to get kind of really dirty and really scratched up, but that's okay because this car is worth it. We have taken off the intake manifolds. They're over there. I'm gonna clean them up so they're nice and spiffy, but we took off the coil packs and the spark plugs, and I found the culprit to our little low RPM stumble. Now, here's all our new parts. These were expensive. So usually on a car like this, anybody would tell you that an Aston Martin is basically two Ford Duratec V6s welded together. I don't know if they're welded together like this or like that. I don't know. But this is not exactly that. The DB9 and the Aston Martin V12 Vanquish, those were more Ford than they'd like to let on. But the truth is the DBS and then the later Vanquish and the Vantage S, those were a lot more bespoke because they had way more power and the parts were way more expensive. Now, these parts are all Aston Martin OEM. You have Aston Martin spark plugs, which are actually, they're made by NGK in Japan, but if you think that there's a part number that you can cross-reference to something else, you are wrong. These are iridium spark plugs made specifically for this engine. There are sorta, kinda spark plugs that might fit, but I'd rather just go with the OEM, and these were pretty expensive. They're $42 each, and there are 12 of them, so you can do that math. And also, we have 12 new coils, because once you're in there doing spark plugs, you want to make sure that the coils are okay too, and when you have a low RPM stumble, it could just as well be a bad coil pack. Now, we took off the coils and they look okay. They don't look too bad, and this car has 33,000 miles on it, so they're not going to look super horrible, but just so I have peace of mind and just so I don't have to do this again, I got 12 brand new coils, and each one of these were $130. Now, the reason why is because there's no other corresponding part number, and I'll show you why. Now, this sort of does look like a Ford coil, like a regular kind of EDIS coil that you'd find on a Taurus or anything with the Ford Duratec V6. But there are a few major differences, and it is, well, the boot is different, but the boot you can always take off, but it's what's underneath the boot that makes it so special. So Aston Martin has this spring setup, and inside here, there, you can see it, there's like this little plastic piece that kind of holds it all together, and this is bonded inside. It's like welded or something, or soldered inside, so it's not like you can just take this out and put it in a new coil. So that means you have to get brand new coils, and since I didn't know which one is bad, I just replaced all of them, because that's sort of what you do, you play part starts. But I did find something very peculiar, and that is in this spark plug right here. Now, this is not the number 12 spark plug. I sort of just put these in any random order. This was actually on this bank in the third cylinder down. Not sure which cylinder number that is, but if you take a look at it. So right there, this is an iridium spark plug, and the tip is like burnt off, and there's like soot everywhere, and you can see that it's white from being lean and then rich, and it was just all over the place. This is not a good looking spark plug at all, and I believe this is, I mean, the technical term is why she's spitting. And that's a Tokyo Drift reference. But this is definitely our bad plug, and this could have been because of a bad coil pack. Now, if you take a look at the other plugs that I pulled out of this engine, you'll see that they're also a little bit all over the place. Like, this is the next plug down. But you can see that there's a tip there. You can see that it's a little bit burnt from likely timing and going lean from cruising. And I mean, this is just kind of normal for these cars. They like to be rich when you get on them, and I did get on it quite a bit, and then it goes lean for cruising. So these are not long for this world. I think if that other spark plug hadn't made it to that level of damage, then I mean, this would have been another maybe 5,000-10,000 miles, so it's good that we're replacing them. But what's good is that there's no like major oil or anything like that. They're not wet. You can tell it's not, you know, leaking any fuel, no weepy injectors, which is very, very good. Now, if you take a look at a new set of spark plugs, you can kind of tell I've been in here before. I'd be really bad at crimes. I mean, my fingerprints would be everywhere. What's cool is that for 42 bucks, you get a bunch of boxes that have part numbers on them and the Aston Martin logo, so you know it's quality. Now, let me try to do this with one hand and not drop this, because if I drop it, then I really don't have any others, and this would be a bad situation. Now, you see that nice fine tip? That's the iridium tip, and I mean, this is brand new, so you don't have any markings or anything. And these have also been pre-gapped, so this is the correct gap. If you look at those, the gap kind of opened up a little bit, and what happens is when that gap has to jump across a larger distance, sometimes that spark can blow out, especially if you're in higher RPMs and a higher load situation. So this will definitely make our car way more happy. So what I need to do now is just install all of this, and then hopefully it all goes back together. But we're not putting the intake manifolds back on just yet, because we still have all of this to go. Because if you notice, I also have tensioners and a belt and an oil change, and we also have an air cleaner, but I'm not sure I'm gonna install that because I believe I'm gonna have a different air cleaner when I do my modifications. But a quick note is that this is an OEM Aston Martin part. This is a tensioner, and I think my tensioner is fine, but I just wanted to replace it anyway. And it was cheap, but it was cheap because, what does that say? That says Ford. That's a Ford part, but the fact is, this is Ford, that's Ford, and honestly, I wish this was Ford because these were very expensive. I mean, you just have to pay to play when you have cars like this. I'm not complaining. This is actually quite a bit of fun, and I'm glad I'm learning a lot about this car. So let's get dirty, let's get to work. Okay, I know I'm only done with half of the spark plugs and coils right now, but I wanted to tell you a quick little tip. Now, this essentially is two Ford Duratec V6s put together, and there are some Ford parts and interchangeability, because if you look all the way in the back, don't know if you can see it, right there, see those metal things right there are the PCV valves, and usually they are plastic, and I will show you what they look like right here because I had to take them out. So this, as you can see, is a Motorcraft, which is an OEM Ford brand. This is what they put on all the Fords. Now, this is a PCV valve for one half of the engine, which makes sense because this is a PCV valve for a 96 Ford Taurus. Now, I got an upgraded part from Advanced Auto Parts. They actually had a CarQuest part, and it's made of metal instead of plastic. These are known to fail. I mean, this rattles, and that's okay, but the problem is these are supposed to seal under certain conditions and let air go under others. It's basically just a one-way valve, but I don't know if you can see it. You can sort of see daylight through there, and that means that this is not sealing as well as it could. Now, this may work under some conditions, some extreme vacuum or something, but I decided that if I'm going to be doing all this work, a $5 valve is not going to stop me. So I got two $5 valves, and I also got some new hose to go with these $5 valves because these have, instead of clamps, Aston Martin used just gasket sealer, and honestly I didn't think that that was enough, so I put some gasket sealer and then I clamped it, and that should be very, very good for our application. But for now, I'm just going to get this side done, and then I might just put the intake manifolds back on, but I might also just work on the front, because I think with the intake manifold on, I won't get to things like the oil filter, which is all the way down there. That's right. In order to change the oil, you have to take off essentially a part of the intake. Not the whole manifold, but you definitely have to take off the throttle body. So since we have everything off, I think we can do that as well. Man, this is like proper wrenching. I like this. Okay, so if you ever wondered how a DBS looks without all its protective covers on, now you know. It's just a big hole. There's a big hole in the front, and there's not a lot of space, and you can just, I mean, you could probably like put a carry-on in here, but my work is back here. So I took off a very, very large belt. I think this is like the longest belt I've ever seen. This is a good 4 feet, and if I cut it, probably be 8 feet. This is a crazy looking belt, but the belt itself looks pretty okay. There's no real cracks or anything in there. It's actually in very good shape, and I don't think this is the original belt. This has likely been changed, and you can actually see the Aston Martin markings right here. So this is, it should be the same belt that I have over here. Yep, okay, so we have a brand new belt, and we have a brand new idler. So that's the new idler, that's the old one. And you can see that it's not so bad, but there's been some corrosion around here, and it's only a matter of time before this seal right here fails, and then debris gets in there, and then it just kind of fails completely or seizes or what. So this doesn't sound too bad at all, but since I got the new part, I'm gonna install the new part. What I didn't account for is the fact that there are like 3 idlers in here. Let's see if we can see them. Yeah, so there's that one that I took out, but then there's these 2 right here, and they all look okay. Nothing just screams I need to be changed. I also did a little spinny spin of all the accessories, and those all seem fine. So I want to make sure that this doesn't have any weird squeaks or rattles or anything, because this car is going to be doing a very high speed, hopefully, maybe, but I want to make sure that I dot my T's and cross my I's. The opposite of that. Okay, now there was a lot of work done, and honestly it wasn't really that hard, other than the fact that it was actually very, very fiddly and it took a very long time. This is day 3 or 4 or 5 or 6, I can't even remember, but this is almost done, and I want to make sure that I take my time on every single thing. Now, there has been something that I did off camera, and that is add a catch can, and I'm gonna go over that with you when I install everything and finalize everything. But right now the oil is draining out of the bottom of the engine, and I can get the oil filter off. Now, usually when you get the oil filter off this sort of engine, this Aston Martin V12, you have to take off the intake manifold throttle body. And since we have the entire intake manifold off, it is kind of easy to get to it, but just because it's easy to get to it doesn't mean it's easy to get it off. Okay. All right. So I have like no leverage here. And of course, the person who put this on before really just torqued it right on there. Come on, you can do it. You can, ow, that hurts. Let's try this again with a different arm. On second thought, maybe going to the dealer wasn't such a bad idea. Whew. Oh, finally, it is completely full of oil and is getting everywhere. I don't know how you're supposed to do this with the intake manifold in there. I think my hand's stuck and I can't get the filter out. Okay, well, I dropped it. This is horrible placement. Really just super horrible. Supposed to bend everything kind of out of the way to make it work. Okay, there we go. Whew. All right. That wasn't so bad. So let's take a look at these filters. Now, this car has been taken care of. I didn't buy something that was a complete basket case, but it is a runner, and it has had a few oil changes, but it's good that they used Aston Martin parts. This is an Aston Martin filter, and I believe that this is probably the best filter to go with on this car. Now, I just got another Aston Martin filter. These actually aren't that expensive. I don't know how much I paid for this. This is probably like 20 bucks, but it definitely is peace of mind knowing that I have a new filter, even though this one looks to be in good shape. I mean, the oil isn't discolored. Honestly, I'd rather have fresh oil in there where I know that I changed it, and I know that I changed the oil filter and the spark plugs and the coil packs. This thing should be running like new. So all I have to do is, just like any oil change, you take the filter and then you lube up the gasket just a little bit, and you can use some old oil, and there's a bunch in here. So you take your finger and you get it nice and dirty, and then just lube up the gasket, and then she's ready to go back in the car. That's gonna be fun. All right, so now is the moment of truth. I don't have everything connected just because I want to make sure that there's no leaks, the belt doesn't get thrown, or really, I don't want my car to blow up. That would be a bad thing. So I put everything back just as it was, and I made sure to torque everything down. I cleaned everything, and I even put my fingers down into essentially the cylinders to see if there was anything in there, and there wasn't anything. So hopefully there's no bolts or whatever in my engine. This took a little bit longer than I thought. This was about a week, just because I was working on this off and on, and these fuel rails were really in the way, plus the fact that we made that new PCV system with a catch can over here. I'm gonna go over everything and just show you what I did, but I'm a little bit nervous, but I think we should probably start the car. Okay, so I am going to just let the fuel pump get everything up to pressure first. I'm not gonna turn it on right now. So there's pumps and stuff doing their thing up in the front. Just gonna cycle it on again. You can hear all the relays doing things, and system check, everything's okay. Now I think is the moment of truth. All right. Car seems like it runs, and it runs very smoothly. It runs on all 12 cylinders. I'm not getting any weird vibration, because before it was vibrating just a lot. And that looks, well, it looks stock. So we did a lot, and I'm going to show you around everything. Now, it may not look like much. Well, actually, it looks amazing, but in there was such a pain in the butt because there's no room to work. Honestly, if Aston Martin wanted to make this 1,000 times easier, they could have made that cowl removable, but unfortunately they didn't, and they gave you an access panel which is like this big. But that's no matter because we have modified this car, actually the first of many modifications, and you can barely see it. So it is this catch can over here. I mounted it right next to the windshield washer reservoir, and you can barely see it other than the, well, Tavarish tape, which is what a lot of people call it, but this is gold foil wrapped, so I just wanted to make sure it doesn't chafe on anything, and also it looks a little bit more snazzy. And this is going to make sure that no oil gets back into that intake manifold, because I think that's why this car was having its issues, and that's why a coil went bad, and that's why a spark plug went bad, because these things, just from a design perspective, are made to essentially chug oil, and it's not supposed to fail at 30-something thousand miles. That's sort of ridiculous. But we fixed that. We fixed all the spark plugs. We fixed the coil packs. And we fixed a bunch of other stuff. We cleaned everything up. And this car is running really, really good. We also topped up all the fluids. We gave it some Valvoline European Vehicle 0W40, which is exactly what this car needs. And now we're ready to go on a test drive. But we're not going to be doing a test drive on it in this episode because I still have a lot of modifications to go on this car, and I'm very, very, very excited, and I think you should be as well.